Oh, yeah.
Yo, hold on. Well, Adam, we are back.
Let's go, baby.
2 weeks, maybe it was 3 weeks. I can't even remember, man. The space is so dead. It's every day is blending together.
Why are we even discussing BRC-20? Shouldn't the title be BRC-20s are dead?
Yeah, just like the whole ordinal space. GM Bunzy, man, Bitcoin Summer, Block Talk. What is good? You're on mute.
Bunzy, you there, bro?
You there, bro?
Supposedly Bunzy's gonna undox himself today.
Yeah, right. Rumor has it. All right, we're moving over at Bitgod. GM, bro, what's good?
Hey, GM, thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Good said he's going to be a few minutes late, so we'll continue to hang out. Maybe one day Bunzy will get off mute, or maybe he's still drinking his coffee. Yeah, I guess we'll spend this 5 minutes kind of discussing everything before the BRC-20 conversation. So for those that didn't know, Adam and I, we used to host a regular Friday show back for about 30 weeks straight. I think that's where I actually met.
Is that true, bro? 30
yeah, this is technically episode 30. I think that's actually where I met Bitgod at, was during that space. And so our intention the entire time of starting the show was to move it to become more regular and to have a more open space. You know, our shows generally surround ordinals, multi-chain, collecting. It's less about flipping, more about community, more about trying to find value, and more about founders and builders than it is to try to participate in this regular PFP paparazzi, which I like to call it, which is the...
Whoa, wait, that's what you're calling it now? The PFP paparazzi?
That's it, dude. It's the PF paparazzi, man. It's what it reminds me of every time I'm in the PFP crowd. It reminds me of just like TMZ, you know, and like who's who and who's dumping on who, and it just becomes so tiresome after so long. Like there's never really as much substance about, you know, what kind of products you could build and talking about expression as it is just about, you know, trying to find vulnerabilities in people's personalities and trying to exploit it. Like it's just consistently what it is, which, you know, I don't want to discredit them at all, because a lot of them are my friends and I still find it very entertaining, but that's what it is more entertainment than it is, you know, kind of about substance. I even had Thread Guy on my podcast multiple times, and he said that the reason why he's so loud is for entertainment purposes. Is not even because of, you know, trying to find information, which he does do a good job. So
I mean, it is entertaining, right? And the reality is PFPs, I know everybody's shitting on them. They're all dead. And prices may go to near zero for almost everything. But the reality is PFPs are an important part of social media. They're an important part of online activity. What they're valued at, are they worth $100,000? Probably almost none. Maybe none. Very possibly none. But to think they're not important is kind of silly. I mean, Jesus Christ, just look in the space, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree as well. So the show, well, first, make sure that everyone retweets the space. I pinned it up to the top. Make sure you like it, retweet it. Throw some quote tweets out that we're going to be talking about BRC-20s. This show is going to be now regularly Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. If you're like me and Bunzy, waking up super early, to really get this going. It's gonna be a fun time. The goal is to eventually, have it maybe 3 times a week, but we're gonna start it 2 times. And it's at a time where we're not competing with any other ordinal show. Yes, there are maybe some other bigger shows, but we're gonna grow this into the community. Also, if anyone's not familiar, Adam and I are on the video. So if anyone wants to join the video chat, you just have to.
The video is fire, dude. This is what they really need to.
Yes,
I'm gonna pin it up top so everybody can see this fire video we got going on.
The video. Anybody's always more than welcome to come. Just shoot me a DM. You got to be a doxed person. It looks horrific when you invite somebody on who is undoxed and you're just talking to a picture.
Their PFP.
my video editor told me the first time we did that, my video editor was like, absolutely do not do this anymore. And so taking the word of advice with my video editor, we need to see your lovely face if you do want to join us on the video chat itself.
Absolutely. No PFPs on the video chat.
I think honestly, I'll eventually do that.
Dude, there's no point for you not to now, bro. Everybody knows your face. You might as well do it.
Well, no, 100%. I'm currently not on my computer, so it would be. I think I'd have to do it via computer, and then I guess it would be streamed through your live stream, and then I would go mute. I'm guessing.
Yeah, right? You'd go mute. I would send you the StreamYard link. You'd come chat with us. You wouldn't have to do literally anything except just talk, and then we cut up all the content and stuff afterwards, and send it out. And so Tuesday, Thursdays at the same time. More than welcome anybody here. So also anybody who's on stage, just keep that in mind that there is like a maybe half-second delay between those who are on video and those who are talking on stage. So I do want to go around and make some GMs. King Ant, what is good?
Good morning, Jake. Good morning, everyone on the stage. Some absolute legends. Dude, I love your stream, and I think it's awesome that you're doing that. I just encourage everyone, if you haven't filmed yourself, I think it's really healthy and it's helped me grow. And I bet Jake could say the same thing. And I don't know. I feel like earlier you were talking about, it seems like the TMZ or MTV with some of the drama, and I can agree with that completely. So I like refocusing sometimes, and I like that you do that. And just glad to be here. Bunzy, Bitgod, great to see some absolute legends here this morning.
Yeah, absolute legends. Words well spoken from the positivity of King Ant as always. Champions of the otherworldly magic. I just had these guys on the podcast. Super cool game, trading card, the first on ordinals. Not the first on Bitcoin, but first on ordinals. GM, bro.
Good morning, guys. This is the social media intern. Thanks for having me up here. Good to meet everybody.
I love that the meta is always.
You guys got a I need one of those.
Most fire intro ever. Oh, that just made my morning. Fuck yeah, dude. That game's super sick too.
I need an intern, man. What the hell?
Let's go. I'll be your intern, Big God. Let's fucking cook.
Bunzy, you're finally off. You're finally off mute, bro.
Let's go. That was fire. All right, champion. We're just the intern. It is a pleasure. And many GMs your way, sir.
And the intern is always the meta. It was funny. It was 2 years ago when I first started getting into NFTs. I became the Mooncat moderator. And I always said that this is like the internship to becoming, you know, an NFT builder, is being a Discord moderator or community manager. That's generally where a lot of people get their beginnings from. It's super, super funny.
Dude, I'm still an intern, dude. Fucking holy shit. Like it's still the same, dude. It just,
bro, the intern mindset is powerful, bro.
oh yeah, dude.
Mindset.
The internal mindset. That's where I've been.
Awesome. Well, Bunzi, do you want to, before we get started, this Tuesday show is a collab between Emblem and Block Talk. Do you want to give just a quick explanation of, you know, what Block Talk is, what's Bitcoin Summer, why we decided to kind of merge this show together, and maybe just give a little bit of an update?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's crazy. Like Jake and I have connected, and seeing what he was doing with the podcast really inspired a lot what I was doing with Block Talk, and kind of with some reorganizing of what I've been working on. Going to start doing Block Talk with Jason Klein as well. But this was a super cool opportunity to kind of merge Bitcoin Summer, all the topics that we've been discussing, with Emblem Vault, and kind of like making one powerhouse of a show to make it, you know, more concise, and getting, you know, both of our resources and cool guests, and making it, you know, because a lot of spaces can drag on and there's a lot of them. So we want to make sure that we, you know, focus it and do the best that we can in a short period of time to make it as dope as possible, because there's a lot of spaces popping up and we appreciate everyone that comes to these. So we want to make sure that they're as fire as possible, and teaming up seemed like the best and most natural idea, because we were already doing it so much anyways. We're like, fuck it, let's just do it. So I'm the intern at BRC-20 discussions, and I'm fucking ready, dude. No, it's exciting, and it's really fun working with Jake and Adam, and yeah, just like naturally I think happened, and now we're officially stating it. So now it's super real, and yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, we got to give Trevor, Jean, and Leonidas a run for their money. We can be their competitors.
Dude, Leonidas is about to be my intern. Oh man, no, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited, and I mean, damn, we got Bitgod, we got King Ant, the fucking most. Ever since I started following King Ant, I'm just like more positive. So like that's dank. And now I'm gonna play card games with Champion and get dunked on by the intern. It's fucking. I love interns for some reason. I know that I'm one, and I resonate with them. And the fact that he said that, I think I fuck with a Magic Eden intern too sometimes. I don't know. I think they LARP though. I don't think they actually have an intern. I think it's just like some paid dude that like pretends to be the intern online.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, actually the intern kind of meta goes way back. They were doing the intern stuff like even when I got back into crypto in 2016, 2017. I think it started with CMS. CMS was like a crypto hedge fund. They did the CMS intern. And then since then, you just see all these different intern accounts. Although I don't think they're actually interns, but gives them a little bit of leeway to kind of say what they want. All right, cool, guys. We're here for BRC-20 discussion. If you're not familiar, BRC-20 has always been my kind of favorite aspect of ordinals. So I kind of am a little bit biased towards just discussing it, because I do think there is, you know, a potential huge unlock of what this could lead to of DeFi on Bitcoin, whether BRC-20 is, you know, that standard moving forward, or whether it's something else. I think that Pandora's box has really opened up since, you know, the kind of creation of Ordi and this new protocol, to where there's a lot of different teams are now exploring different ways to use it. We've done all kinds of different cross-chain stuff. You know, there's new standards, people are trying to do new protocols. And, you know, we're lucky to sit here with Bitgod, who's kind of been on the forefront of this through the ups and downs, you know, through the beginning. We are going to have Good join us. He said he's going to be late. He's the one who's running MXRC. The reason why I chose both of them is, you know, they have two of the largest BRC-20 communities that really exist. And they're also two builders who really haven't given up yet on BRC-20 and still trying to figure out different ways to build about it. So for Bitgod, for those that aren't familiar, just give us a quick rundown of OXBT and your project Redacted.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's now been, a little over 2 months since, OXBT was minted. I think as of late or more recent, right? I think it was about 1 or 2 weeks ago, we made the announcement to, fully go or push towards a fully decentralized model. I think it was, at least for OXBT, it was very clear that, after continuing to listen to some of the different thought leaders, one of them being Casey Rodimer, of course, the founder of Ordinals, in one of his podcasts that I've listened to now, I think like 20 times, and probably a lot of us have listened to, he talks a lot about the sort of like Bitcoin ethos and like all of his constraints around, building the Ordinals protocol. And of course, one of those, one of the pieces to that was this like not necessarily having, a token, but with that as well, like not taking a pre-mine, or not sort of taking, a team allocation, enriching yourself at the expense of others. And so I think the way that we looked at that was like, we have this, treasury of, potentially millions of dollars of tokens, but it's, it wasn't necessarily earned, right? It was pre-mined. And so that was sort of a necessary step, in our opinion, to start to move towards, the decentralization model on the OXBT side. On the redacted side, right, we've made an announcement sort of more recently that, what's happening on that side is a number of things, right? What, Lynn is really focused on that side is, building an identity system, as well as, working on a one-of-one PFP airdrop only to OXBT holders. And then more recently, we also announced, myself, as well as Chief, who, Jake, I'm not sure if you've had on the show or not before, but we've announced sort of the founding or the start, not necessarily the start, but basically the establishment of a new entity, which is called Quadrillion, which is going to be focused really highly on bringing some of the top artists in crypto as well as outside of crypto to Bitcoin, right? Highly curated platform with mystery, focused on digital artifacts, leveraging OXBT. So
what you're saying, you haven't been that busy at all, right?
Not at all.
Dude, that was a lot of updates. I mean, Jesus. But
yeah,
I do want to unpack the Quadrillion really quick. I mean, I saw that, and I just want to hear a little bit more. I know you're getting into it, but I just really want to point that out because I think that type of curation on Bitcoin is going to be amazing. We saw it happen on like Counterparty and some of these like really well curated collections, but really interested to see and hear what you can share about that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to, we haven't really released too many details on it, but I think just to go into, why sort of starting it, I think it was, we continue to hear across, Ordinal's Twitter that like artists should be building here, right? Like artists should be, launching stuff on Bitcoin, but ultimately felt that like, I think like, platforms like Ordinal's Wallet and Magic Eden, they do a great job at what they're focused on, right? Which is the secondary market. But on the primary market side, right, where this platform is really focused, there hasn't been, I think, enough curation, right? Enough of a place where some of these top artists, from ETH, from other chains that have proven sales, feel comfortable really launching their art. Even though they believe Bitcoin should be a place to launch stuff, they haven't found that. And so we believe that there's, sort of an avenue to really focus on fine art and bringing that and being the bridge to, many of these great artists over to Bitcoin. And I think that the signal that that'll send to, other artists, to other builders, to the market in general, is that this is a place for, fine art. And so that's our hope, and that's ultimately what is being worked on there, and we're in love with it. I think it's going to be fun as well, right? We're sort of adding our own little twist to it, and I think it's going to be really fun. So I'm incredibly excited. I think, of the people that I've talked to as well, both on the artist side, Ordinals, OGs, Jake and Adam, and Bunzi, I'd love to sort of talk with you guys in private about it. I think a lot of people are really excited about it, and the whole team is as well.
So, Bitgod, regarding going back a little bit to the decision behind burning the entire supply, or the entire team holding treasury of what I'm looking at says 34,489,780. Can you dive in a little bit of detail of like what was the decision behind burning this? Was this purely a decision to, help to assist with a deflating price that's down 99%? Was there concerns around how is a BRC classified from a regulatory perspective? I know there was multiple delays leading up to this decision where you mentioned that you were being advised by your legal team. I don't know if I heard any maybe a longer explanation of what led you to that decision of burning. I don't know, what was it, like probably 15% of the total supply?
Yeah, so I mean, it really had nothing to do with the price, right? Like that's not how we should be making, I think, any of our decisions. What it really had to do with was of course around the decentralization piece, leaning into the Bitcoin ethos, which is entirely against any sort of pre-mine, as well as the legal side of things, right? Like we continue to get really legal counsel on this stuff, and it was very clear that of course this could have an effect on price, and so like we could not announce this previous to it happening. We went back and forth with the legal side of things to make sure that this was all clear, as well as we ultimately felt like with this collective and moving towards this sort of decentralization piece, that if we are to sort of ever sell OXBT, it should be earned, right? In that it should be exchanged or exchanged for, of course, a good or a service, not pre-mined. It was very clear to us that if we took the other route, which was, okay, myself or sort of anyone a part of the founding of OXBT took, a team allocation, took some of those tokens and sold it. One, of course, it wouldn't look too great, as well as two, the whole legal side of that is a complete mess. And so what we ultimately felt was the best way to sort of get around that is if we ever do collect, or the collective, right, this decentralization piece ever does collect, it's because it was in exchange for something, not pre-mined. And so that's ultimately why we decided to of course burn it.
So you're saying that, just so I understand, because it's good to know this, just as a community. So your best legal advice that you received was basically to kind of stay away from any sort of pre-mine. Is that right for yourself? I mean, I understand it's a lot of gray, or was it just so gray you just were like, we just don't even want to deal with it? Like, what was the kind of best legal advice you got? Or was it all just gray?
The legal advice wasn't necessarily around, because it's pretty clear that you can of course like take some of these tokens for yourself. It was more so around the Bitcoin ethos, right? Which is vehemently against the pre-mine, right? Of these teams sort of like taking, or VCs taking tokens and dumping, right? That's not a decentralized sort of ecosystem. Like that's not a true ecosystem, right? It wasn't earned. It was just held back. And I think that like the whole legal side was mainly around, okay, if we do this, how do we do this properly? And so that was that. I mean, of course there's legal gray area, but it was mostly around how to actually properly do this and move towards the sort of right model.
Yeah, there really is a lot of gray area. I mean, when we launched, OXBT with you, the kind of Emblem collaboration, we had OXBT listed on OpenSea. We were going through, you know, the whole process with them. We have an open channel. And then within 20 minutes, all of a sudden couldn't trade OXBT on OpenSea. And, you know, we were like, wait, what the fuck's going on, right? We had the get-go, or we had the green light from them. And the team that we were at OpenSea that we were talking with said, I'm so sorry, you know, a different department flagged this. You're going to have to open up a ticket. You're going to have to make sure everything's okay with them, but we'll expedite, you know, your ticket. Ultimately, you know, I open up a ticket. Within an hour and a half, they get back to us and they're like, yeah, we've frozen trading. We haven't completely delisted it because there is some uncertainty surrounding BRC-20s. And of course, you know, they flash the line that no one ever wants to see. Yeah, we consider this a security or a commodity. Although, you know, we, you know, vehemently disagree with it because it's the same technology as an ordinal. There is a lot of ambiguity around it. And, you know, some of the reasoning, and we can even have this discussion of, you know, what it is. I was trying to, you know, make my claim to them. I said that's purely a subjective, you know, perspective because it's the same technology that's being used as that we've been doing, that we've been selling Bitcoin punks and all these other ordinals over the last few months.
Wait, are they securities too, Jake?
Right. And to me, it's like, yeah, right. We're just saying, I mean, you're using the same underlying technology, right? Be the equivalent of like using an NFT or an ERC-721. The only thing that's different here is the indexer, which would be the equivalent of like an oracle. You're just interpreting different types of information surrounding it. And of course, OpenSea's, right? They're trying to go public. So they're trying to be, you know, take as many precautions as possible. But for us, it kind of led to a decision is like, maybe it is a commodity because it is a piece of Bitcoin. And so if they're viewing it particularly just as the code, right, where ordinal theory is not hard coded into Bitcoin, they're just saying, hey, we don't give a fuck about what your ordinal theory is. This is a piece of Bitcoin, and therefore it's a commodity, and therefore we do not have a license. You know, I think you need a money transmitter license to sell Bitcoin on your exchange. So I've learned a lot working through Emblem for all these like, you know, regulatory arbitrage kind of periods. But I know, Bitgod, did you consider any of that during this process as well, in terms of like what it may be considered from any of the regulatory bodies across the world?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that in talking to the legal side of things, like it's pretty clear that one of the main things, right? And we were pretty clear on this as well. I think in the lead up, or at least like post launch of OXBT, that like no one on the team was going to take a team allocation. But it was pretty clear to me that one of the surest ways to, or one of the surest signs to like potentially becoming a security is, one, taking a team allocation, as well as two, how large that team allocation is of the overall supply, right? And so it was pretty clear to us that regardless of the underlying, that there was of course risk, and there always will be. Now I don't know, like I doubt that like any regulatory body gets to ordinals anytime soon, right? I think that that's probably years away. But I think that like there's no need for, I think, anyone to really take that risk, in my opinion, especially because you know, myself, I know Lynn, Chief, like many others on as a part of the team, like we want to be here for a really long time. And so setting ourselves up, setting all these different teams up properly for us to operate, you know, serious businesses on the Bitcoin side, I think is the best route to take. So I think that all of that really played in the decision, and it was something that we had considered for a really long time and had so much pushback, and or I shouldn't say pushback, but just continued back and forth with everyone on the team on why this is good, why this is not good, you know, all that sort of stuff, and ultimately felt that like leaning into the Bitcoin ethos here as much as possible is I think what should be done. And I think the companies that are being built on Bitcoin should also take that ethos into account as well. I think that like building products on Bitcoin should be different than what we've seen before. Right? Like that's not a typical thing we've seen in crypto, but like Bitcoin isn't typical. And I think everyone that's building on Bitcoin right now is finding out that this is a lot harder than anything else. But once figured out is I think pretty powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I like the direction you're taking. Bitcoin and ordinals, we really need to separate ourselves from Ethereum and stop doing the copy pasta and really kind of build our own unique culture. I do have to say though, burning $350,000 is no easy decision. About 35 million at a penny, right? So it's about $350,000. Just setting that on fire or sending it to Satoshi, I guess. It hurts a little bit. I do want to say GM to Good, who just made on stage, is another one of our special guests. Man, what's going on?
GM, sorry for being late, man. I had like something last minute. But I kind of appreciate the conversation. We don't see often BRC-20 being discussed in like spaces, right? So this is why I was pretty much excited for this space. And cheers to everyone attending this, and hopefully we can have like a fruitful discussion. I know the market sentiment is kind of bearish right now.
Kinda.
I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, right? And I think this is why we're here primarily. Just to keep encouraging people that are, still building on Bitcoin. There's a lot that's happening. And thank you for having me on stage, Adam, Jake, and rest of the panel.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to throw you in the fire immediately as you just enter through the door. I gave Bitgod kind of went through an explanation of his project. The reason why, I wanted you to come on here too, you and Bitgod are really, two of the project founders in the BRC-20 space who are continually building. Both had similar starts, have both gone through, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes. But it seems like both of you have now kind of got a footing a few months later as to what you can do with these and maybe the direction of the project. Give us an explanation of Meta BRC.
Sure, 100%. So the thing about when I first started, getting involved in like the Bitcoin space, because I come from like an Ethereum background, and I'm not really like the art. I don't have like the art background or anything related to like art, right? So that's I think one of the weaknesses maybe I have, but understanding tokenomics or their utility or even like the entire DeFi thing, that's where my interest lied more, right? So for me, the natural route to take with the entire Bitcoin thing was, tokens. To me, it was natural, right? So when looking at Bitcoin, other protocols and blockchain, I think Bitcoin has like the biggest in terms of like value locked. I'm not talking about DeFi ecosystems. I'm just, talking about money sitting on the sidelines, right? Waiting for something to happen on the chain. So there are a few ecosystems. If you look at other chains, there are a few ecosystems with their own tokens and currency through which you can exchange like, Ethereum. But I feel like it was something that was lacking on Bitcoin, right? And with the come up of like BRC-20 token, what I figure is that there might be this additional utility that we can bring to these tokens, right? I know there's a couple projects building the proper infrastructure to be able to use these BRC tokens. We're extremely early. I think what happened initially was that, when BRC-20 tokens kind of arrived with the Ordinals protocol, we kind of inherited from like the meme coin hype that was happening on Ethereum with like Turbo Pepe. I think we're coming off of that. We had we had Ordinals protocol becoming more and more mainstream amongst like Bitcoin enthusiasts. And I believe these were some of the factors that enable like the huge hype for BRC-20 that we saw. Unfortunately, I think over the past months, people kind of became like impatient, right, about the entire BRC-20 ecosystem because, like many said, it's a lot harder to build on Bitcoin than people can imagine. But so my approach with like the entire Meta BRC, the tokens were natural. It made sense to me to offer utility through that, right? Because usually what happens is that if you have, for instance, like some people rather take like the art route. I take the token route. Ordinals and NFT for general. For me, it's more complicated to understand because you have to get it right to be able to gather a community around your art. But tokens is just for me the simplest representation of like ownership that people understand, right? So whenever you mention like a token, people immediately understand that in terms of utility. Either you could stake it, you could use it as medium exchange, you can potentially exchange it on like a 1-to-1 ratio with like another currency. So there's a lot of things for me when I look at the BRC-20 token that we can actually do, right? So in terms of Meetup BRC, what we were looking for is actually helping in building the required infrastructure for these BRC tokens to kind of thrive, right? So that was the entire purpose, of the project. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. There's a lot of projects working, and at the step where we're at, I would say I'm even more bullish than when I first started, because I actually see, tangible progress, right? So that's where I would say we're currently at with regarding the entire BRC-20 and the entire ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you look at, or when you compare the Ethereum PFP ecosystem and kind of the Bitcoin BRC-20. Right, we kind of started with, or the ordinal side started with, BRC-20s, and now it seems like you and Bitgod are kind of moving towards the, the art side, the NFT equivalent. And then when you look at the PFPs, they started with, the NFT and the art, or what you call art, and then they kind of moved into the token. Obviously, we know what happens when PFP communities launched a token, right? It just went pretty much straight down. So maybe this is a little bit of a different dynamic. I did pull up here for those that are watching, one of your recent announcements. There's a lot of things that you've dove into, which I'd like to dive into. One is the recursive playground, which I believe is going to be the thing that's coming up next. You've been very big on DAOs. You even have a DAO researcher on the team, and then you have an ordinals drop coming as well. I believe it's called the ordinals. Tell us a little bit about the recursive playground, what this is, and why did you decide to kind of build this tool to assist with the ecosystem?
Sure. So for the first point regarding the recursive playground, right? Initially, when I kind of started the piece in the space with the entire Meta BRC project, I think one of the main issues I had was to kind of find like the art style that kind of represented the community best, right? And on top of that, I think one of the other things that kind of drove me to, push me, not drove me, but, push me or made me reluctant to kind of go towards the art route. It's just because everything was so expensive on like Bitcoin, right? The inscriptions, there was also, the narratives around rare stats, which people were, just becoming fan of. And I think the overall complexity of having art on Bitcoin was so huge, right? So what happened is that when the recursive inscription kind of came along, that's where, something just popped in my head. I was like, there's a new way to release art, right? And with this new way, not only does it lower like the entry cost for people to build collection, but with the recursive inscription, you could actually just inscribe traits and have a collection, grow over time, right? As the community grows or changes, you'd be able to adapt, traits from that collection and just have people reinscribe or inscribe these traits on like new art, right? And that's, I think, what kind of drove me to release something called recursive playgrounds. And there's also like a lot of lessons I learned from like the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So it's very difficult to please an entire community. It's always going to be something like 50-50. So going with, I saw a lot of narratives on Twitter saying like the 10K PFP is dead, this is dead, this is not working. I think the best way to release a project is always release a project or art in the image of the community, having something that that the community can benefit and enjoy. And that leads me to my next point of having a DAO, right? Because as much as founders, you have a vision for the project, it's always important to kind of take into account what community wants also for the project, right? Of course, you're not going to be able to please everyone, but the purpose of a DAO was to kind of help each other out in terms of resources, try to help fund projects. It's not only about like the monetary or financial aspect, it's also about like the technical resources, right? In the past couple of months of just me being in the space, I was able to actually, just by knowing certain people, I was able to connect teams that were able to work together. I've known a couple of teams that were working with like improving like, indexers or working on their own projects. And that's where something kind of clicked in my mind. I was like, there's a couple of teams working on the same things, right? Is there something that these people can do by working together, right? These are some of the things that kind of, came into my mind. And essentially the DAO is all about building a project that helps community and just provides resources So that was the main, intention behind building a DAO. And just remind me of the other point I think you mentioned.
The Ordinal collection, your upcoming collection.
Yeah, the Ordinals collection, I would say this has been like the most difficult part, right? Because everything you might be doing on Bitcoin obviously is going to be compared to what's been happening on Ethereum, right? Not only in terms of like art quality, it's also you're also going to have like comparison, like when is the next, who's going to be like the next Azuki, who's going to be the next. And I've had like rough start with like the Ordinals collection and just previewing some art. I think you're aware of it. We've been in the Discord, so it's been something difficult. So I said, you know what? I read some advice on Twitter. It's like, if you're about to put something out, don't put something that's puttable, right? Just put something when you're ready to put it out. I think that has been my approach for the last couple months.
Go ahead, Bunzi.
Yeah, I think like I want to take. Excuse me, it's still early. But, all right, here we go. I got the pipes cleaned. I mean, having Bitgod and Good here, like working with BRC-20s, working on a DEX, and kind of experimenting with peer-to-peer swapping. I just want to propose the question to you guys of like, for a BRC-20 to remain sustainable, there needs to be utility. I know that word gets thrown around a lot. And I guess as we saw ERC-20s become sustainable on Ethereum with like ecosystems of like, say you want to use this tool or do something of the sort, depending on how many tokens or you could arbitrage that. I guess the more direct question would be, is there anything you guys are looking to explore with your BRC-20 that could accept Bitcoin and your unique token to kind of allow market arbitrage for holders to kind of have the option to pay in Bitcoin or BRC-20? Is that something you guys have been exploring?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the first few things that I think I saw that work perfectly were like these, all these raffles, these auctions. So I think this brings like a baseline utility to like the BRC-20 token, right? I think the big next step for BRC token would kind of be the ability to have a DeFi infrastructure on Bitcoin, which I think is probably like the most challenging thing. But DeFi has always been, market proof, right? Whether it's during a bull or a bear market, there's always something to do on these protocols or ecosystem, right? And I think at the core level, what everyone wants, despite being a part of a community, it's at the end of the day, people want to be able to make money on their assets, right? And having, all these degen traders sharing strategies on how to make money with BRC token, I think that's also what, brought the initial hype to BRC-20 tokens, right? When I discovered BRC-20 token, it wasn't on a small forum. So I think it was a couple of traders talking about BRC-12 token, how to profit from, arbitrage and trading from BRC-20s. And I think it brought lots of liquidity into the market. But if we don't evolve at the same pace as these traders, I think we're going to start lacking behind. And then, they might be moving to other protocols or blockchain. So I would say DeFi for me is the next, big door to break down.
I couldn't agree more, because I think volume is due to use of tokens. If once you hold a token, yes, hodling is a strategy, but for a market to flourish, I think people need the option to do something with said token. Otherwise, you have an asset that is highly speculative that quickly gets everyone goes to the dark side of it, of like, all right, this is nothing to do. It's like, it's so crazy. Bitgod, you're like, I launched this 2 months ago. That is insane. That literally is insane. I feel like that was 2 years ago. Like, it just, with the amount of things that have occurred, that you've accomplished, that you've done with it, with matched, like with the elephant in the room of like people like, that's not enough. Like, what are you talking about? Because I think at the rate of this is evolving, let's just parallel it to ERC-20s, right? I think DeFi Summer was the big kind of push of what you could do with an ERC-20, what that really meant. And then we always have shit coining in between to kind of bridge those kind of gaps in big tech like innovations that make these tokens go burr. So like I completely agree with you, Good. I think allowing like pro traders, if you will, or lack of a better word, like active traders to participate in DeFi with BRC-20s is going to increase volume and a lot of activity, because volume means, you know, chart go up, more people get interested, brings in more outside liquidity while doing that. But I think, you know, the PFP narrative is interesting and kind of, you know, played out. And I think the ordinals communities, just what Ethereum did on steroids, just expediting through the whole thing really quick. And people are like, okay, we've gone through the speculative phase. What are we going to do with these? But I do still think there's a lot of room for like what you're doing with like art collections with a BRC-20 being the native token to keep that thing moving. So Bitgod, this one's more geared towards you with a BRC-20 background that you have in some of these collections. Like, how do you see those things working together better than just saying, okay, let's just do Bitcoin for art collection? Like, what are like the X factors of why a BRC-20 would make it as exciting as I think it can make it? But I just want to hear it from you of like how you're thinking about art and BRC-20s and why that's different than art and Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is I think that of course these are semi or sort of like, yeah, I think semi fungible is probably the right word, given, you know, how difficult it can be to actually, you know, facilitate trading with this stuff, because you do have to inscribe the transfer function before you can really do anything, either you know, sending, buying, selling. I think that the way we look at it is it just enables, I think, you know, more of really the community. I think that we have, you know, OXBT has, I think, around or a little over 16,000 holders, which is, you know, regardless of how much, you know, you hold, that is, you know, one of the larger communities on Bitcoin. And I think that that's really powerful, right? And I think that you know, I've talked a little bit to the community and, you know, of course the rest of the team, and I think it also comes down to like what actually makes sense to, you know, ourselves as a business, but also like what makes sense to Bitcoin. Like, you know, there's about maybe 4 or 5 different things you could really build or try and build that might be interesting, but you know, those are, you know, like a game, right? A metaverse, you know, maybe a DeFi protocol, stuff like that. Like, I think all of that stuff is great, but I think also, again, like what makes most sense for the business, we don't necessarily have competency or you know, serious competency in building something like that, and to promise something like that to anyone, I think is of course very dangerous if you don't have both confidence as well as experience in doing those type of things. And so that isn't something that I want to do. You know, what I've become, I think, more passionate over time about is really art. It's kind of weird. I've become an art guy, and that was never the case previously. Well, I should say never. There's definitely some inspiration from, you know, my parents on that side in the past, but yeah, I think it's interesting. Ordinals has really turned me into an art guy, and Lynn has turned me into an art guy, and it's quite odd. But I think that like that's where the competency lies for myself. I think for some of the people on the team, as well as, you know, it makes the most sense for what Ordinals was created for, which was, of course, as an art project. And so I think that like this is where fine art should live, right? This is where Bitcoin, I'm sorry, fine art should live on Bitcoin, and that's what we really want to lean into. So I'm really excited, and I think it's a great question though.
I love that, and kind of where my head was at is, I think what that allows is, because I'm with you, I think fine art inscribed on Bitcoin as a digital asset where it's not pointing to some IPFS, consolidating everything, and you kind of have this Fugazi like hash that just points to stuff. I do think owning fine art on Bitcoin is going to be the, you know, the most, in my opinion, the most goated way to own digital artifacts. But I think what's interesting about the BRC-20 and art conversation is we see that, and we have this question time and time again. Are you here for the art? And I think what the BRC-20 part allows is for people that want to collect it. I know it's rare and I like to think it's more people than it is, but like they can hold it and collect it. But people that want to arbitrage and do stuff against that collection, I think the BRC-20 now allows for that activity because people are wanting to do that. Like people just, they flip this shit and like no matter how you look at it. So I think once people arbitrage and do cool activity with BRC-20s against collections and kind of build an ecosystem around that, these are going to be some of the more bigger collections that I feel like that have sustainability to appease those people that want to move their tokens, to make them feel like they're, doing something. But I just think that's kind of the next phase of where we're heading with a lot of these technologies, specifically on Bitcoin and BRC-20 tech getting built out. But I want to go to some of the hands, unless anyone has, but Randy's had his hand up, and then we'll go to Good.
Yo, good morning. Good morning. Thanks, Jake and the hosts for having me up. Yeah, I know. I was just kind of going to come back to this idea that like Ordinals is only 6 months old. It's pretty crazy to think about. It feels like it has been years. And I don't know. It's just, we've already seen this massive hype wave run up and then this massive downturn, and like Ordinals are dead now and all this stuff. And it's just really interesting to see how much has happened over the last 6 months in this space. I think honestly, attention spans are just decreasing, and if you don't have the capacity and the money and the funds and the teams, big enough teams really with lots of engineers to keep up, then you're going to fall behind. And it really is these downtimes that enable smaller teams to come back and get their shit together and get ready for the next run up, if it does come. So it's like, your positioning in the market, how many people you have on your team, how many engineers that are competent and capable of like building stuff rapidly, because attention spans are only decreasing. Look at the Unibot and like the meme token run-ups and turndowns. Those happened over the course of 14 days max. And all of a sudden it's like nobody's even trading on Unibot. Like if you bought any of those other coins like Hams and Omnia and stuff, it's like down to zero. It went from 0 to 100 to 0 within 2 weeks. And that product is brand new. They just came out. And I bet you their volume is less than half of what it was at their all-time highs already. And so if you're not prepared for a world where it's instant attention to the max, and then if you can't keep up and your team's not big enough and it falls off, then you're just really it's gonna be a struggle out here. You're gonna have to make as much money as a business as you possibly can during those times when you have maximum attention, and you're gonna have to allocate those funds properly during the down times to prepare yourselves for the big comebacks, And
well, I think Randy, like that's what's interesting is, I mean, the majority of exchanges, right, like make the majority of their money in about 2 or 3 quarters, right, during the bull. Right. And so and then from there, liquidity is dried up, right? Like you're probably not going to be able to raise too much money post that, right? You have a small window to prepare yourself for,
and those windows are going to get even smaller, I think, over time. I think it's like, you get a whole quarter of a bull run, or maybe 2, if you're lucky, out of the year. And then it's like 1, and now it's like 2 weeks. Like you get 2 weeks. And if you're not prepared for it, you're fucked. But but at the same time, it is kind of like a blessing to small teams like mine and yours, Bitgod, and I know Bunzi and Jake, all you guys were all kind of like small teams on the come up in this space. And it can be a blessing if you can take advantage of those big run-ups and then use the downtime to build out your team, to make the right moves, to build the right stuff, to have the right ideas, and to execute on those during those downtimes, so that when the next one happens, you're there, you're prepared, you're ready to pivot at any moment's notice. And your platforms are stable and your indexers are good and all of that stuff. Like now we have the chance to go back in and fix all that stuff. It's really funny. I was talking to Harry, our lead developer, yesterday on a hike, and Ordinal's wallet had its highest volume day when when BRC-20 came out, and our BRC-20 indexer at the time was like Frankenstein BRC-20 indexer. And so we got all this volume and all this income and all these fees from traders on this crappy BRC-20 indexer. So then we went and reinvested all this time immediately into making that BRC-20 indexer and that BRC-20 experience as good as we possibly can. We added the minting. We made sure that it was all set up properly. And then all of a sudden, nobody's interested in BRC-20 anymore. So all that investment post run up was like we made more money just capitalizing on the market attention and what the market wanted during that time. But it didn't really matter afterwards that we were able to like kind of get our shit together, pull it all together, make it all work and stable, because the hype wave was over. People weren't really interested in that, and they had moved on to the next thing. And we had to be ready to pivot right then and there at any time. So that was like a really interesting kind of case study as to like what is really going on in this ecosystem, and especially when the attention shifts really quickly, and it's like attention from Ethereum and Solana during that big run up and investment, and then it moved over to Ethereum meme tokens and like Unibot stuff, and then now it's like back into Solana, and like whatever chain you came from, people are kind of going back to that chain, and that's why we're seeing a downturn in NFTs and token volume across chains. It's not just ordinals, it's Ethereum, it's Solana, it's hitting hard everywhere, and people are kind of just going back to where they're familiar right now. When it's new and exciting, it's going to consolidate like it did with ordinals, and now in the next bull run, it's going to be real competition. It's going to be really who on ordinals can compete with the likes of OpenSea and Blur, and who on Solana can compete with, who on Bitcoin can compete with the likes of Magic Eden and whatever that other big marketplace is on Solana. I forget the name, but they're out there and they've had years to build, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars, and they have probably 50, 60 engineers working for them, or somewhere in the tens of engineers even is like a place where we aren't even at yet. And to be able to even compete with them at this level is pretty exciting. If you had asked me 2 years ago if I would be going head to head with my small team against Magic Eden for, marketplace, head-to-head marketplace war with Magic Eden, I would have been like, well, those are the big dogs. I don't know. I doubt it, And now I'm looking at guys like OpenSea and Blur, and I'm like, and Magic Eden, like I'm coming for you motherfuckers. We're biting at them now. And hopefully we'll be able to seriously compete pretty soon. And they're innovating at a rate that like is really hard to keep up with. They're constantly coming out with updates that are like really helpful and valuable in the ecosystem. And like, despite the fact that we have like a stronger brand and that people want to use our product, I think that their product is just genuinely servicing the market faster and better than we can handle right now. And we've got to change that. And we've got to change that quick if we want to be able to keep up during the next market cycle.
Yeah, Magic Eden's really just running the same playbook that they've done with their three other marketplaces. Before they came into ordinals, they had Solana, which was their beginning. Then they had Polygon, then Ethereum. Now they're on to ordinals. Also, they raised $190 million at the peak of the bull run. So, right, that's kind of where all that capital comes from. I want to call on Good because I know Good had his hand up. Then we'll go on Bitman, and then I'll move the conversation forward.
Yeah, sorry, I almost forgot what I wanted to say, but yeah, I've been waiting too long, man. Yeah, so I think it might be like a little out of context, but just hopping off of what Bunzi said earlier. I think sometimes we're kind of having these conversation about like it's BRC versus ordinals, right? I don't think really that the two are like mutually exclusive, right? And I know I'm big into like the DeFi thing, but I do see a lot of value in the ordinal space, right? And in my opinion, right, I think projects or the entire ecosystem, it would be kind of better to like focus on the biggest common problems, right? Which seems to be always liquidity, right? Like Randy just said, you're able to profit off of certain market cycles, But when there's a downturn, that's when things become complicated, and then there's competition against like, you know, these bigger platforms, right? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, like most of the problems that, you know, the entire Bitcoin ecosystem is facing is liquidity. Now, the question is always, how do we get more liquidity into these ecosystem, right? And what we need to figure out is what we understood is that essentially we need different players into the game, right? We need people who are interested in BRC-20 token as much as people who are interested in ordinals. And the simplest example I can give for that is, for instance, we have this new lending platform, Liquidium, that kind of came into the scene, right? And what we did figure from that was, as much as you have people, you know, having ordinals that they want to, you know, lend in order to get like quick liquidity, we have to figure out also a way to incentivize people who have liquidity to give liquidity, right? And I know I had this conversation with Jake like a while ago about, you know, trying to bring other communities into Bitcoin by allowing, you know, interoperable tools like, you know, swapping, bridging. I think I've always been big on interoperability. I think it could be like a huge bonus for the space. And yeah, so that's about what I thought about bringing liquidity and all the issues we might be facing.
Ooh,
I'd push back against that a little bit. Sorry, Jake. Saying that the thing that's needed is liquidity. I'd say the thing that's needed is interesting new stuff. That will bring liquidity, right? I mean, it's like people need to build stuff that's cool and that people want to use and has functionality. You know, the idea that we're just going to basically copy pasta what's been done on Ethereum and bring it over onto Bitcoin, that has validity. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't work. It does work, but that's not going to bring new, interesting, new people into the space and get them interested in something, the next thing. And I don't think the next thing, frankly, is, you know, art NFTs. Not to shit on you, what you guys are doing, what anybody's doing, because I do think art NFTs have value, but realistically, what the entire space needs is like, okay, we had DeFi, we had NFTs. What's the next thing? That's what I'm kind of looking at.
I agree. I think that the focus on liquidity is kind of the wrong way to look at it. We need to be looking at it as, how can we add as much value to these people as we possibly can, and focus specifically on people who are already, you know, Web3 users. How can we add value to these people who like to be online all the time and engaging in these markets and speculating, you know? And so I think this is actually a pretty good time to bring in the champions of otherworldly magic, because I think this is a great use case for, or at least example of a use case that has the potential to kind of capture not just Web3 users, but outside markets, and to bring them into the fold, into the Web3 type of thing, where you have a real game that people can play against each other, in you know, having similar experiences to Hearthstone and comparable experiences to real serious games, and then bring in the Web3 aspect of it, that is like paid, you know, peer-to-peer, you know, money games and tournaments and stuff like that. And then you also have the NFT aspect, where each card, you have to own the card on chain in order to play that card in the game. So it's like deck building becomes a whole nother aspect of the thing. And then all of a sudden you have real demand and real reason for demand. These people can go and buy these cards and develop these decks in the way that they want them, in the way that helps them win these games. And then those games earn money, and that those trades become profitable over time for like the best players and the people who really are thinking about it the most. Stuff like this is really gonna push the space forward, as opposed to just like, how do we, you know, get as much attention as possible. It's going to continue to be the same cycles over and over again if all we're doing is like hype wave, and then like, you know, less attention, it dies out, and then hype wave again. What we really need is like people who are genuinely interested in like engaging in these communities and being a part of these things and playing these games and stuff like that. And when you do that, what you end up with is like a long tail graph that's just always kind of moving in the right direction, because there's real interest and there's real long-term potential for growth there.
So Randy, are you saying that GameFi on ordinals could be that sector that is niche to ordinals that'll attract other communities to kind of come back and
I mean,
participate outside of speculation?
Every chain is going to start to compete in this space. And I don't think speculation is a bad thing. I think speculation is a really good thing. I think when you get real, true market pricing on things, you have a better world in a lot of ways. And so I think that the next wave is going to be in like fantasy sports and gambling. Like, obviously, that's a major use case for crypto. Video games, and then like just general speculation on everything. Like, if you could have, we were talking about this in the space with Jack Lou the other day, but if you could have a restaurant reservation system or a tea time reservation system that is like, basically it's a bidding system where if I have a tea time for 10:30 tomorrow on the golf course and I paid $20 for it, and then somebody comes in and bids $50 for it, he gets the tea time, I make a profit, and so does the golf course. All of a sudden you have like true market pricing for all kinds of stuff. And this stuff is all constantly being speculated on. I mean, there's a ton of really interesting use cases that we've never gotten to in crypto. I think a lot of that reason is because like blockchain scalability and stuff like that. But the NFTs is just the tip of the iceberg. We really need to start to discover real use cases for people in order to access that, like, you know, big iceberg that's under the water there, before we can, you know, if we just keep doing the same things over and over again, like Adam said, we're going to end up in the same places over and over again. And honestly, attention is going to decrease over time, not increase. And we haven't seen that yet. So it's getting to that point where people are going to have to get value in their lives, or they're going to just get the fuck out of here.
I would push back a little bit though and say that attention does increase during bull markets. That's kind of why they become so prolonged. In the bear market, attention's, you know, it just decreases because people realize how bad they are and that they don't want to participate. And also, I'd say a lot of the builders, as you'd mentioned, in the bear market, tend to turn inwards and really kind of focus on building rather than, you know, speculating and promoting.
Don't get me wrong. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the PFP game. I think that looking cool on the internet is only going to become more popular, not less popular. I think that personal branding on the internet is going to become more important, not less important, especially as like IRL markets, like retail businesses. And like, you know, if you were to open a coffee shop in COVID, for example, you would be totally squeezed out right now. All that stuff is getting pushed onto the internet, whether we like it or not. And your internet branding and your personal brand is going to become the most important thing in the world for you to, you know, basically provide for your family. I think that's happening. That's going to happen whether we like it or not. And I think that PFPs play a major role in like enabling people to establish brands, get involved in communities, increase their followers, increase their following, and then maybe create a business around that. The opportunity is definitely rising and not falling in terms of online branding and then what you can do with that. So I don't get me wrong. Like, I do think, and I love NFTs. I love PFPs. I have thousands of them, literally. I just think, and I do think that is a valuable thing. Like my NFTs are very valuable to me.
I have thousands of NFTs in my hidden folder. I want to call on Bitman. He's been waiting patiently, and then we'll go out to champions and then up to Bunzi.
Good morning, fam. You know, good to be here and everything. And as I listen to this conversation, man, and you know, I think what can be done for BRC-20s or just for like the market as a whole, man. I honestly think like we're at this point to where we were blessed in the bull market, and the remnants of that kind of like left us in a place as far as like we still got to perform like it's in a bull market, and everybody has these expectations. And I really feel like the expectations, like what people are putting on the creators at this point, are just they're just too like huge, man. They're too like, it's too hard to fill those shoes, man. Like, I think the expectations should be downed a little bit, and then just everybody just should continue to build, man. I think that's going to be the thing that gets us there.
And all the other ones.
But yeah, man, this is just I don't know, man. It's just like, it feels like everything is just too inflated, and everybody's going off of the same players. There's a million there's a million ways, things that you can say that can be done. And there's like, I don't know. I just feel like people just need to the creators, the people that are in this space, that are in here, like doing real shit, doing big things. I think they just need to just put their heads down and build, man. And I like with the speculation, I honestly feel like that's one of like the key things of a bull market, to where when the bull does come, like the more you can speculate on a project, like the more profitable it can seem. I feel like that's going to have like a lot of the money flowing into it, because I mean, if you guys been here for a couple of these bull markets, like there's a lot of these coins or these things that come out and they're not really worth nothing, but just the fact that you can be like, yo, this could possibly do this, and it can possibly do that, and that can be just because it can possibly do that, it can possibly be worth $1 billion, $1 trillion. And so I just feel like the speculation is great, if you have that in a project. But as long as you just building up that war chest, building moving the market forward, and just focusing on bettering yourself, man. And giving that to the project you're building on, or the projects that's being built and development that's being input into the space. I feel like that's going to be the way to win. And then when the bull market comes, now all of a sudden you got 20,000 announcements you got saved up because you just been having your head down and working. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Well said. Yeah. There's a reason why the cliche is building a bear market. And it's because, from what I've learned, during a bull market, when you're an operator or you're running a project, it's impossible to push any updates, when your systems are consistently overloaded. Go ahead, champions.
Yeah, I was just going to hop in here and touch on some of the stuff Randy said. And I mean, similar, everyone on our team, we're all, Bitcoin degens. We all have thousands of these ordinals and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we're just, our genuine interest here is just like building cool stuff on Bitcoin. And I mean, we, are super stoked with the direction here. We feel, some of these games that are being built on Bitcoin right now are just, so far behind what, Call of Duty and things that gamers actually want to do. And with our game, and for example, in the trading card genre, I mean, you can play it right now and you can tell that it's just not too far behind like the leading games in this category, like Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering Online. So we are, super stoked that that's what's going to drive Bitcoin forward, is having these low cost assets that are like stored on the chain that can be used for things outside of Bitcoin. So yeah, appreciate you guys shouting us out. And yeah, I mean, any comments or anything on that? But yeah, it feels like, this is the first time where something built on Bitcoin can, be compared to something on just traditional Web 2, where if you really just care about the game, you can throw in $100-$200 and get to playing it.
Yeah, when you look at the history of NFTs in general, the first actual NFT, quote unquote NFT collection, was actually a trading card game on Bitcoin called Spells of Genesis. So the fact that you guys came in and actually had a lot of success so far, just shows that simplicity is what's necessary to find some sort of attraction. But also, people just want to play. People want to do stuff outside of speculation. Although, we need speculation because it begets liquidity, which gets attention, and so on and so forth. But I was lucky enough to, record with you guys, and I'd pinned it to the top for anybody who wants to listen to that podcast. Can you just give us a brief explanation of what the project is? And then, since your launch on Ordinal's wallet, which was, I believe, about a month ago, can you give us some numbers as to the amount of users you guys are seeing or demand?
Yeah, I mean, so like basically our project is like a turn-based trading card game that's similar to Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. We have like 151 champions. These cards are duplicated. Players have to build a deck of 25 to 30 cards in order to, play ranked or compete in these tournaments that we're hosting and stuff like that. And yeah, just kind of the numbers. We minted 30,000 cards on Ordinal's wallet, 3 weeks ago or so now. Yeah, sold, I don't know what they were, like $6 or $7 with fees. And then yeah, the secondary market's just been about, I think I checked last night, 3.5, 3.3 BTC in secondary volume. But yeah, I mean, even since we talked on your podcast, like, you know, the game's already improved significantly. We've updated the game board, all of the bugs that, you know, some we ran into on stream, those have all been fixed. And yeah, this past weekend we ran our first tournament, had about 30, 35 players. Yeah, you know, the big thing here in like the trading card game. And like I said, I think we can compete with Hearthstone and Pokemon and all of these like Web 2 experiences online as far as TCGs, but also, you know, trading card games have like fallen behind the rest of gaming as far as like tournament prizes and things like that. And so that's really going to be our avenue going forward is, you know, we're going to try to run monthly tournaments for $5,000-$10,000 first prize and then have like a, you know, big ass world championship at the end of the year. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of exciting things to go. And like I said, our team's all Bitcoiners, so it doesn't matter what happens today. We're just going to keep building and pushing this forward. And yeah, I mean, we are really like diving into the media and content. So we are about to, you know, have a full scale like marketing attack over Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all of this stuff coming here shortly. But yeah, appreciate you having us up and talking about the project.
I mean, I just want to kind of say, like, think about this. Like, how often do you see an NFT collection that mints, and on the day of mint, they already have a working version of a game where you can play multiplayer, player versus player against somebody else, and then on top of that, post mint, they've already, you know, made their bag or whatever. They're doing tournaments, right? So they just had their first tournament the other day, and it's like that's obviously like a direction that makes a lot of sense there. I don't know. I think that this is something that we don't see often. We haven't really seen before in ordinals, especially, and it's exciting. You know, it's an exciting thing, especially during this bear market. Like, what, you know, like what's good?
Yeah, when
I feel like good right now. I just have this conversation has so many good topics that I want to chime in on, but I think that, you know, this game is the perfect example of making something with restrictions being a part of the creation process. Like, for example, when you create an ordinal, it has to be under a certain amount of megabyte, and like there's beauty in the restrictions. And I think this model explains and highlights the beauty of a game that's not Fortnite that kids are playing that don't have money anyways, is a game where, you know, you can have hard assets. Because I play Magic the Gathering, and if you own a very expensive card, you're not putting that in your deck and carrying that around. You have like a proxy card, and you can prove that you own the high value asset, and it's safe. And I think in a model like this, where every 10 minutes in the middle of a game, if you're swapping cards, like you're out, like you're cut, you're out. And this is a provable way to own assets, play with them, and meet the market where it's at. Because I think a lot of creators and innovators want to meet the market where it's not at. And we're thinking like, okay, we need Call of Duty we need to compete with that. And the realization that I've starting to make is you don't need to compete with things that are already proven in a different model. You need to meet the market where it's at. And like, basically, you know, with the legalities of an open market and meeting people of like, basically we just need to gamify gambling and make a casino. Like it sounds rough, but like that's essentially what this shit is. And the moment someone knows that like, okay, I'm going to play this card game, and that's like poker level. Some people just want fucking slots, and that's the NFT randomized mint model. And the moment that people stop like putting a curtain over it and pretending to be something that they're not, and be like, okay, this is a straight up fucking ZK, like odds are not in your favor, but you can win big, and just really start to build out models that are proven in IRL, if you will, or meat space. And like, I just think this card game, because I was going back and forth with Randy. I was like, dude, gaming on Bitcoin, no fucking way. Just no. Like, we've tried the Ethereum, like, because what I was not connecting was I was thinking, like, we need to make a Fortnite of, but no, that's not the case. There's plenty of other models and things to build with, you know, the mempool taking 10 minutes. And like, that is more sophisticated long-term games. And like, I think people overlook, like, everyone wants that quick fix and like, sure. But it's the same thing with iPhone app development. You have to have a big, long conviction play with small things in between that can like fuel the market, if you will. So like Angry Birds comes out. That's a small idea, but that changed the way people started designing apps. And I think I want to see this game be successful because I think it's the perfect model for Bitcoin gaming and assets. It matches provable markets like Pokemon, like Magic the Gathering, like Yu-Gi-Oh! These are provable markets that have KPIs, and it works perfect with this technology. And I'm like, that's where I had to rethink the whole gaming model on Bitcoin, because it makes me think the way it's going to happen is high value assets, Bitcoin. Like, okay, maybe things like in-game currency, you know, maybe, I don't know. This is like a full blockchain scale. I'll digress on that thought. But I just think things on Bitcoin that need to get built are like this game.
But Bunzi, when are you going to turn your swap tool into like a casino, man, where people can like, you know, put in their BRC-20s and like spin the wheel, baby, spin the wheel.
No, but see, that's the issue, is like back to being completely transparent with what the product is. I think people try to like bake too many things into one, and they're like, okay, we're this, that, and this, and that's where expectations get crazy and weird. And people are like, yo, Bitgod, where's my fucking waterfall next to my toilet? Like, dude, I don't do anything about that.
You don't use a bidet?
I never talked about waterfalls. I never talked about toilets. Why do you want that from me? And that's the issue, is people are like, all right, but this roadmap says my grandma gets fucking cheesecake on Sundays. And like, that's the problem. It's like, I think people need to be competent in their product, have short-term products, and conviction on a long-term one. If you can't build something long-term, like in a like, or you're scared about the volatility, go into real estate. Go into something more like, like, don't. This isn't for you.
Go into real estate. I love it. Hold on, guys. Hold on. I led on stage Etherization. If you don't know what Etherization is, it's actually one of the first NFT games ever on Ethereum, built in, I don't know, was that like early 2016? Early 2016. So I'd love to hear Etherization's opinion on everything for coming up on stage, sitting with one of the OGs.
Thank you, Jake. It's Ivan here from Etherization. Thank you for letting me on. I just came home from my vacation and I saw the discussion, and it's really a good one. I just wanted to say something. As you know, we're built on Ethereum. However, I'll tell you something. I've been in this space for like 7 or 8 years. And to be honest, I've seen many, many altcoins come and go. And the only thing which stays and will stay here for another 100 years at least is Bitcoin. So whatever you build on Bitcoin, I believe it's here to stay. You know, I'm not even sure if Ethereum will be around in like 20, 30, 50 years, but Bitcoin will be here. So keep building. That's the comment I have right now.
You're a madman. This guy's thinking 30, 50 years in it.
50 years, bro. I'm barely thinking tomorrow, man.
Last time I heard 50 years, I was talking to my fucking accountant that thinks I'm gonna die.
I have something to say on this topic, and then Etherization is relevant here. I think what's interesting about this game is that, like, they want a lot of people to be able to play the game, which would mean that you would need to keep card prices low, and as demand goes up, you would need to increase supply over time, similar to how Pokemon and Magic the Gathering does it. But there's also a balance there, right? Because you want attention, you want the price to go up for the attention and the speculation aspect. And then if you oversupply, you end up like Magic Eden is now, which is in a really horrible spot. They've just kind of flooded the market to the point where of no return, and everybody's sick of them. So to see, like, it really is important, the founders and their ethos and what their plan is to do, because you don't want to oversupply, but you also don't want the prices to get too high to price people out from actually playing the game. So there's a massive like economic and financial dynamic happening here that you don't necessarily always see in the NFT space. And the way that you manage that is going to be insanely important for the success of your game over time. So I don't know. I mean, maybe
I see that as a bonus point for doing it on blockchain. Because, for example, these card games, that's the nature of building a game that is hard to scale with users. It's not infinitely scalable. There's not enough cards, but that's what builds high rarity and high, but amongst pro players, if you will. Like, and imagine, I mean, these games have accomplished it. And so the model exists. And I think there's interesting, we could use not only statistics, but like at this buy rate, how many more cards will come into the ecosystem? And there is a balance and like a delta there that like can be achieved through understanding 100% what is in circulation rather than, it's crazy. Some of these cards, not only can they be duplicated, fraudly made, and then not knowing how much is in circulation. So finding and I know Josh is fucking very savvy on this because he trades and, is in the market of cards. And like, I think this opens up what we're all looking for is transparency. We wanted that from the financial system, but like with assets like this, I don't have to go Google search how many Black Lotuses are in circulation, like how many have been burned or, we can know for sure. And that's a good thing. And that's like a good thing for a healthy game to continue to like, if you act in good faith, the blockchain rewards that. When you act in bad faith, it's like, dude, time's going to lapse and people will see what had happened. So I think when you act in good faith there's a difference between rugging and making mistakes. And I hope that gets addressed but I do think that, I don't know, I'm just so bullish on this concept because knowing how many cards, it is difficult equation to solve, but once you solve it, it will increase my incentive to buy in, being like, oh shit, all this is verifiable, proven, and I know who owns what. I can offer them trades. And because if you look at
this is the thing though, dude, nobody gives a shit about card games.
That's
Sorry.
not true.
I just want to gamble my tokens, dude. Can I just gamble my goddamn tokens?
Games that hold digital assets.
I'm joking to a degree, but at the end of the day, most people are not interested in that sort of thing. I agree with you, and I'm not to shit on card games too much.
Well, here's the interesting thing about card games is that eventually the card games just end up becoming collectibles and less about the actual gameplay itself, which is also a benefit. And I was having this conversation with champions about moving the IP past a 2D and into the 3D and what this means, and how you compare it to Pokemon, where it's the most valuable IP in the world. And the cards are still like a nice size or a decent percentage of its revenue, but it's not just that anymore. They've kind of molded into everything else. So maybe champions will kind of spin this conversation back up is kind of looking at it now, right? We're in the earliest stages of ordinals. You've also deployed on Bitcoin SV. We talked about how you've considered, putting cards also on Litecoin ordinals and what Doginals and maybe some of the other opportunities down there. Where do you kind of see this going? And how do you look at, champions and say, how do we grow this bigger outside of just this 2D card game?
So I'll just touch on the first point. I think there's 100 million monthly players of trading card games. So it's still a massive genre. There's, huge tournaments all around the world. So I do think that there's plenty of people outside of Bitcoin that we can, touch with this. So that's another, intriguing fact of it is, it's not just catered to these Web3 people. We really want to target the Web2 and just all these, just trading card players. So there's that. And obviously there's all those directions we can go and 3D assets and turn each one of these champions. I've mentioned it on your podcast, the main devs here, like a crazy Unreal Engine dev. So, imagine an Unreal Engine world with all these champions, battles inside that world. There's just so many directions we can go at that point, but really we're just focused on right now, we just launched this. There's only 30,000 cards in the ecosystem. We can't really spin the narrative of being a real trading card game with only 30,000 cards in circulation. So that really has to amp up. And I mean, we're going full scale at this. Like, we want to compete with Hearthstone and these top titles in the genre in that direction. So we still have a lot of work to do to even get there before we can even get to the, you know, growing outside of the 2D cards and stuff.
One question. Have you thought about doing, I mean, obviously with only 30,000 cards, still a very small supply, but have you thought about, because I mean, my TikTok is filled with pack breaks, like all day long. These guys are doing pack breaks for Pokemons, you know, obviously sports cards, NFL, basketball, this sort of stuff. It's I mean, literally guys are on live streams for 10 hours a day unboxing Pokemon cards, right? With the hope of getting like the 1 in a million Pokemon card, right? Have you, is that part of your long-term strategy, doing something like that?
Yeah, it was actually part of our short-term strategy. Like, actually, so we minted on, Bitcoin SV. Some people from that community reached out to us too when we originally were just going for Bitcoin ordinals and said, hey, we can do this over here. And we actually minted packs on Bitcoin SV, 5, 10, and 25 packs you could buy. But like kind of the next step to get to where you're talking about is, minting these packs, and then you have to, you're just getting a pack in your wallet, and then you actually have to take a next step to open this pack. And I mean, that's like high up our priority list.
Have you guys ever entertained like doing physical cards that like marry with like NFC chips or something to like the digital version?
So one of the guys on the team's like, been traveling around the country for Magic the Gathering tournaments and
let's go
30 years, and he has contacts at all these comic shops and places where like these people are actually going. And there's just so much simple stuff. We've actually had a card manufacturer reach out to us and give us a quote for us doing a run of these.
That's so sick. Because I always thought what would be super cool if I bought a Magic pack or whatever, a pre-made deck or a booster, all those cards would populate my internet collection as well. And that's not the case. They're siloed individually. And I think, yes, it would be obviously a very hard task to achieve, but I think being a dual, like digital and physical, and like once the physicals get purchased, like it represents digitally, but if those don't, the digital version still exists. I think it's super interesting to roll out something along those lines.
Maybe it's possible just at the beginning that only the super rares get the digital as well. I don't know. It's interesting to see how that works.
If you get,
that's a good point. That's a good point, because commons can just get that's interesting.
If you get a Panini pack of like football cards, it also comes with like their little blockchain cards, and nobody gives a fuck. So it's like, really, you could spend a lot of money and time developing into this, physical digital mashup thing. And
on that note, no one gives a fuck about PFPs. Like, go down to PFPs. Like, no one gives a fuck. That doesn't check out to me.
And kind of like what our, kind of our play to attack that problem is really what we've learned is like all these trading card game players aren't like brand specific. All the trading card guys play Magic, they play Pokemon, they play Hearthstone, they're familiar. So, how you draw these people like that don't give a fuck about blockchain or whatever. And I think is like, you have a $10,000 like card tournament, that's going to be the biggest trading card game tournament in like, of the month. So if we can have a game that's, the gameplay is similar to those, and we just put these, because there's more money in NFTs and like kind of this digital space than there currently is in trading card games. So we want to try to attract those players by, having these like big ass tournaments and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, it brings back like Bitcoin I just wanted to use Silk Road. And like, that's kind of the progression of like most of these things for onboarding, if we use that term like as lightly as we do. But like, there has to be that moment of like, oh, now this is what makes sense and why I should care. And I think I don't know, obviously I'm biased. I play Magic the Gathering. And
nerd.
I want to see this happen because, dude, I want to dunk with my digital and physical collection. Like, that's just, I think that is, to me, it just makes the most sense. Like, starting another Call of Duty on chain, that fucking is gonna take fucking ever.
Yeah, and kind of like what you said, where like we can, not only do we think we can meet the market, where the market's at, like we think we can provide like a better product. Like, imagine, the Charizard number 16 or whatever has, won a big ass tournament. That's all recorded as data for that specific chart, that card that increases collectability. Say Charizard 7 has never been used in a game. That's more collectible.
Yeah.
As far as dunking, yeah.
That's like the new style of grading, because now it's like, dude, how used
exactly.
Post Malone on. That's interesting, because what another cool thing people don't, or I'm sure people do, but like they don't deteriorate physically. All these assets aren't like exposed to that issue, which is fucking really awesome as well. So. And yeah, imagine, I mean, dude, I'm super biased on all this because this conversation has been super fire too. I'm super pumped for this show to get fired back up.
Like attaching like emotes to specific cards. So if you make like a killing blow with Charizard 3, it's got this, NFT emote that you've unlocked from our gameplay. I mean, like I said, I think we can exceed like the experience of these like physical cards and then have a equal
like the fatality graphic.
Yes, exactly. Like finish.
Oh
like
shit!
Nordy game, and it does some like badass animation or whatever.
So champions, I have a question. Is there any intention, or has the team put any thought into diving deeper, maybe having some integrations within the broader Ordinal ecosystem, like leveraging a BRC-20 token, or trying to bring the game to bitmap or whatever that becomes? Or are you just using Bitcoin as kind of just like this landing place where you just want to have cards tokenized on every chain?
Yeah, I mean, initially that's kind of the strategy, is we want like you to be able to play the game with like not even really knowing that Bitcoin's on it. But that being said, I mean, I'm a Bitcoin degen. I'm all interested in the bitmap. I've talked with Bitmap Valley about like getting those games playable inside that. We've had discussions with Ord Games. So, dude,
I was just about to say that. Ord Games has done a great job with their token.
So I was just talking with them yesterday.
You're already in talks with who I think is not only has the experience, but I mean, that's most important. I could say like, oh yeah, I can do a BRC-20 in a game, but they have been doing it. And that's super interesting. Great question, Jake. Like that's this whole conversation kind of TLDR is like ordinals with, a BRC-20 kind of ecosystem where it makes sense. And you can also like, for winners, you can, grant, some of your token and build this kind of living, breathing ecosystem where like, if you want to play, you have to burn 10 points. Same way that it works on the Magic the Gathering app is like, you have to buy this fucking token to play people online. And man, I don't know. It's a lot. It's very hard to execute, but I think the pieces are there.
So champions, yeah. Have you considered a BRC-20? I don't think I heard the end of that response.
Yeah, we've considered a BRC-20. It's like a topic in the Discord. Like we're trying to work with community as much as we can, and we're going back and forth. But I mean, the main thing is like, yeah, we're just trying to first priority is getting this game to Hearthstone level, and then then we start exploring all of these other options. But that's kind of like where we're at. And I mean, it's not like this is going to take months. Like we're literally expecting it to be there like within 10 days or so. I mean, we should have matchmaking and all of that, live rewards where you're getting like a Coom box after each game, and those can be opened in the future. I mean, we're working around the clock. Half the teams in New Zealand and Australia. So when I'm asleep, they're just grinding on the code, the back end stuff. So it's literally like a 24-hour cycle right now for the past month and a half of us just improving. And anyone that's played the game, a month ago versus now, you can see the difference. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm interested in Bitcoin. So obviously BRC kind of can go hand in hand with this project.
Yeah. How do you guys view BRC-20 internally? Do you see it as, currency? Is it more of a commodity like gold? Are you still debating it? This is also a question that I'd like to propose to the larger speakers as well. Is how do you view BRC-20s as an asset?
I mean, yeah, just like, really tokens. I mean, that's the one thing about all of this is, yeah, it gets in if we're viewing it as a currency. I mean, there's things that have to be taken into place there. But yeah, just like a token inside the game. So, you just like you get the Coom box that you open for example, could have 10,000 Coom coins in it or whatever like that. So that's kind of the initial direction that we've been discussing. But
yeah, it's pretty exciting. Bunzi, what is your kind of view as BRC-20 as somebody who's been working, on a swap tool, BRC-20 for BRC-20, BRC-20 for ordinals, right? You've had to kind of build out this tool looking at BRC-20s and ordinals kind of as the same, although it seems that everyone kind of has a different opinion of it.
Yeah, I think while going through the process, it started to highlight why this swap made sense to release before like a full DEX, where a lot of it's like an AMM and there's like liquidity pools, is to kind of prove out the technology of these assets. And I think perfectly matched with Champions game is like just people that want to trade their existing assets, because previously, like if you just hold token and hope and just that's the only option, naturally people are going to just lose interest and floor, if you will, a lack of a better explanation. But I think what it also really highlighted to me was BRC-20s being used as a minting currency for ordinals, where the minter or the project allows for price arbitrage of like, okay, if you want to buy this, it's 0.1 Bitcoin. But if you want to buy it in OXBT, it's 10 OXBT. What that allows is the ecosystem to flourish, the original holders to get rewarded, and for them, because that is the big unlock of this technology, is like it's such a catch-22 because people view it and use it so wrongly. Like flooding a project is, especially when you believe in it, is negative for everything all around, because your bags go down, inspiration for the team goes down, and morale goes down. But once you have this healthy cycle where people win and you continue to try to slowly stagger that, so your original holders become like stockholders and they see the upside, now you have brand advocates and people that are like pushing your product, not with shitty affiliate links or like weird like YouTube videos of like, yeah, use this. No, they're just like, dude, I fucking love this shit. And now they're using BRC-20s in your ecosystem. And when facilitated properly, you now have like a community / I guess whole economy, if you will, where you can help facilitate. Yes, it's hard to do. People have, continually try it. But again, like look how much Bitgod has done in 2 months. Like that's 2 months. Wait for 2 years. Wait for 2 decades. And like the whole point here is like business models, in my opinion, why I'm so bullish on this, will get flipped on their heads, because it's always been an extraction. And the only thing that people have is like the idea of, oh, I can return this, I guess, or my bank, if it's fraudulent, will give me my money back. That's the only difference. The upside of buying an asset and being like a holder in it is a net positive, especially once it's a great product. For example, let's use Netflix. Say they did an issuance of tokens, and I bought when they were in beta, and they did 1,000, and this token is lifetime subscription. And now they're doing monthly, but I still own this token. On the secondary, that original token, if staggered and issued correctly, like I am now, because of my early adoption, able to not only maybe exit, but feel a part of something, which is like, people don't like to say that, or like, but we're all humans. At the end of every UTXO, there's a human. Believe it or not, yes, there's bots at times doing wash trading, etc. But like, people forget that like, there's humans that want to be a part of something. It's innate in us. There's tribalism. Why do you think PFP collections had the uptick that it did? It was a structured tribe, if you will. But people that organize around like a true SaaS product and like community being a big part of it and tokenizing it, Like, I think Bitgod and Good are thinking about it in the right way, 100%. Like, and yes, it's way easier for me to say this than to do it, but I think that's what my like convictions on of like why I participate in this is I think with anything that's starting in beta, people want users. And if you give them unique tokens to signify that, not just an email address where you could properly reward people, I think people that see that model and utilize it is like where BRC-20s and these smaller token distributions make sense in an ecosystem like Bitcoin. So that's my TED talk, but
damn, that was a hell of a TED talk.
Bro, can we just get the community-based casino going, dude? Can we just do that, please? Let's do that.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like literally a slot machine with a cigarette butt, like right next to it, just says, we have 55% upside, you have 45. Do you want to pull the lever?
Dude, you throw your BRC-20s in there, you pull the lever, bro. That's it, man.
Dude, I'm just saying, dude, that's just facts. Like casinos, have you been inside? People make fucking excuses. I'm going to Vegas for the show. It's like, no, bro, you're going to fucking gamble.
Gamble with something, right? Either gambling, socially, reputationally, or financially. I guess throughout this whole
show, it's like, yeah, I'm going to Vegas for the show and the art and all this stuff, and people just are lying, and it's like,
no, they
say
do.
what it is.
They do. People just want to be up to no good for some mischievousness.
We need to make Sin City of NFTs.
I've been trying to do that for 5 years, but I will recant on that for another day. Go ahead, Etherization.
Yeah, just one idea I had. I've seen many board games on Indiegogo and Kickstarter raise like millions or hundreds of thousands. Maybe you could widen your audience by, attaching NFT to some real life figurine, and you can raise money as well from the crowdfunding campaign, as well as getting people's attention to NFTs in general, and maybe attract more of them to your game. It's just an idea.
That's the alpha. That's the real alpha. I go on that site to look at new like gadgets and stuff, and I'm always blown away by how many people fund board games.
Yep, millions. I've seen millions of dollars pumped into it.
I guess that's the next meta, man. I think throughout this conversation we mixed, GameFi and BRC-20s, and so we just need an ordinal GameFi shitcoin BRC-20 casino. We'll just use everybody's BRC-20 for these different games. Whoever wants to build it, ordinal casino. When you go back to the earliest history of Bitcoin, the first real utility was Satoshi dice gambling.
Yep.
Hasn't changed since then. I think that was 2011. I think.
Yep.
Eric Voorhees became a very richy man because of it.
Yeah, I played it actually.
Did you?
Yep.
If I can say something, I think that GameFi is the most easily accessible thing to the common man, right? So when it comes to trading or when it comes to collecting anything, those are really niche habits or hobbies. But I know every single person here has played an Xbox, right? Versus how many people really collect Beanie Babies or Carnival Glass or whatever. Versus how many people have the wherewithal to trade. I think that BRC-20s and I think that NFTs and that standard and the tokenization standard allows for the common man using GameFi to like really benefit from it. I mean, how many people here have played World of Warcraft and grinded for level 80 gear, or how many people here have bought a skin on Fortnite or some such? And these aren't assets that you own, but you pay for. This allows for the reality of gaming to like become a valuable like hobby or a valuable practice, and I think that's going to be our quickest way to getting into the retail consumer that has no idea what's going on with all this.
Go ahead, King Ant. Good, I see your hands up.
Yeah, my bad. I was replying. I just wanted to say earlier I'd had my hand raised too, but I am like Good and Bunzi as well. Like there's 1,000 things I feel like I had to say throughout that whole thing. And I just want to say throughout the whole thing, I I believe, like, as far as gamification comes with casinos and like, I think you guys are spot on. And why that'll go forward is because that's what people want. And like, whether or not, I feel like that is what's going to help push Web3 forward as well as a whole. When Bitcoin and when BRCs, as these developers, these creators that are on this stage right here, create and go forward, I think it's going to be a catalyst to help the whole space. And I'm just here to support you guys and educate, on board, and continue it. Bunzi, I want to talk to you about your casino because I'm all for it.
Bunzi's not creating a casino. I've been on his ass for a month to create a casino.
It's called the Intern Casino.
The
And
Intern Casino.
Basically, what it does is it just fucking internalizes everyone's sin and just paints it on. I don't know. I'm still ideating. Yes, let's talk about it, King.
Yep, sounds good.
Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit earlier about the card games. There's a lot of big conventions that for board games and especially Magic the Gathering. One's called Origins Game Fair. And I think, like you guys should be the first people to show up and, show off a like Web3 style game. All these cards, not physical cards, but they would be, really down for that. Because you'd be like the first ones to really do that. I've been going there for at least like 4 years, and I haven't seen anything like that so far. But I just wanted to offer that. It's in Ohio, but people travel internationally to check it out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just saw your tweet. We'll definitely look into it.
Yeah, this is a kind of a tactic or guerrilla marketing that early pioneers have done. I don't know if you follow Deep Black, who's one of the earliest AI kind of NFT artists. He showed up to, I think it was like a 2019 or 2020 CES convention trying to show his art, and did not work well. But when you look back and see that he was there, it just kind of adds to the legacy and the story of it. It's quite fascinating. So, all right, Adam, we've been going at this for 2 hours. We're ready.
I thought we were going to keep this shorter, Jake. My camera clicked off after the 2 hour mark. I forget my stupid camera has like a 2 hour timer on it.
Yeah, we're gonna be back again. So for those who have just joined, we've moved the show. This used to be a regular Friday show. We've now moved it to Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. This is going to be going on every week. Hosted by me, myself, Bunzi, if he can make it on Thursdays. I think Bitgod's gonna be regular. Anyone who's on stage can come be a regular. We're gonna be diving into, everything, ordinals, collecting, kind of just cool stuff. We're talking about some topics, right? We're here to create, a fun environment that we can also have the freedom to, try to intersect some of these, the crossroads of GameFi and BRC-20. Did not think that was gonna happen, but I think if anything we've learned today is that Bunzi's building an intern casino.
All right. No, correction. Built. It's done, King Ant. I'll send you a link. I'm ready for an audit. And
I appreciate everyone who came on stage. Bitgod, Good, our two special guests of the evening. I highly suggest everybody who listened today, give both of them a follow. Two founders and creators who are continuing on the BRC-20 road. Similar ideas, but it seems like they're now kind of merging into different sections. So it's going to be a fun follow. Big support of both of them. First, I want to say thank you, Bitgod and Good, for showing up today.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, Randy, always appreciate you. Champions and everybody else. If anybody has any final words, anything you'd like to shill before we close it out, please speak freely now. And if not, then we'll see you back on Thursday.
Okay. Intern Casino. All right. No, but this is awesome, dude. I'm pumped. The 2 weeks I missed doing the show, and I'm excited to get it back because I've been popping in some other spaces, and I'm biased again. I play Magic, but this space was fire. I'm pumped up and ready to inspired to build some more stuff. Farmer Joe, welcome to the stage. Happy birthday, dude. Holy shit.
Yo, what's up? It's been such a long time, but I feel like I needed some
Farmer
time.
Joe, happy B-Day. HBD.
Yes, please. Yes, please. I'm giving everyone a BTC DGOD for
he's whitelisting everyone for his birthday. Chuck E. Intern Casino. What's today's date? 6 p.m. Farmer Joe's birthday. Fuck yes.
Fuck yeah.
Yes, sir. Turning 18 today.
18th day.
Another spaces, another birthday. I appreciate everyone for showing up. I'm going to close this out here. Join us in the next 48 hours for Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We'll see you guys then.
Thank you, guys.